Today we're taking an early look at the new Chronicles structure deck. Once again, all foil, but this time based on the Spirit Charmers. If you remember, a couple months ago, we took a look at the Ecclesia Albaz Chronicles deck, and these are very similar products. So the Chronicles deck Spirit Charmers is an all foil deck that is complete with a bunch of cards that support, of course, the Elemental Charmers. The first Spirit Charmers Chronicles episode is out right now, with more coming in the future. And yeah, it's pretty cute, so make sure to check that out if you haven't already. But this is based on that. We're going to see a ton of cards for the Elemental Charmers, as well as a bunch of generic reprints that we'll talk about as we go along. Let's open this up and find out what this deck has to offer. This comes with a 40 card main deck and a 10 card extra deck, and just like with the last Chronicles deck, they also give you an extra copy of one of 6 cards that is in here, and that can also come as a Starlight rare, so maybe we'll get a little bit lucky. Let's see what we have. Oh my gosh, we did it! Okay, so we do have Spellbook of the Grand Circle, pretty much the card that you want to pull. Maybe the new Fusion Monster is a little bit cooler, but man, take a look at that. That is a nice looking card. I guess we might as well talk about this because we have it right now. So this is Spellbook of the Grand Circle. This adds 4 Charmer monsters with different attributes from your deck, graveyard, and or banishment to your hand, and then you shuffle 2 cards from your hand into the deck. You can banish this card from your graveyard to fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using Charmer or Familiar Possessed monsters from your hand or field. Also, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when a monster is fusion summoned this way. So basically, it adds a bunch of Charmers to your hand, and then you fusion summon for the new Fusion Support card that gets bonus effects based on how many different attributes you used to summon it. What's really interesting about this card is that while it does require you to use Charmers or Familiar Possessed monsters, you still can fusion summon whatever you want. In this deck, you'll see Quintet Magician, which takes 5 Spellcaster monsters, and that's a pretty cool card that you can summon with this as well. So it doesn't only fusion summon the new Fusion, it can fusion summon anything. All right, so we are starting off, unsurprisingly, with the 4 Charmer alt artworks. So these are alternate artworks of the original Charmers released all the way back in 2005, and obviously they are based on how they look in the Chronicles episodes. I really like the Charmers. They have been around for a long time, 2 decades, and they've gotten tons of support over the years. They already had an older structure deck several years back, if you remember that, and we're going to see some of those cards appear in here as well. But I like these cards because they have a long story over the course of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, but also because they tie into other stories too. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Go-Go Gaga Giga. This is actually his smaller form, the Gigabyte, and obviously, you know, he has a much longer story, a huge plot in Yu-Gi-Oh! And in here, he's just a little baby lizard. Very cute. And then also, Win, the Wind Charmer, is related to, she is the younger sister of Winda, the Gusto, who later becomes Shadal Winda. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with that card. So that's kind of cool. And all of their familiars are cards as well. So like I said, this is Gigabyte. This one has Foxfire, a very old card that was featured in an older Fire structure deck. This one has Petite Dragon, and this one has Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness. So those are actual cards in the background. I think not everyone knows that. Okay, here we go. We have Familiar Possessed Area, Familiar Possessed Hida, Familiar Possessed Win, and Familiar Possessed Asa. Now, if you know about these cards and when they first released, you probably know that these are not the original artworks, and that is true. So these cards got alternate artworks not too long ago, and this is their first reprint. So that is kind of cool, but the Charmers are the brand new alternate artworks. And then we also have the Channeler version of these cards. So we have Hida, Asa, Win, and Area. They're all channelers for their different attributes, and these are like the grown-up version of those characters. So it starts with the Charmers, and then it goes to the Familiar Possessed, and then it goes to the Channelers. You can really see how their skills are developing, not only in their artwork, but in their card effects too. These cards are pretty good. They're generic searchers for all of these different attributes. Right now, there's only 1 episode out for the Chronicles Spirit Charmer story, so we haven't really gotten to that point yet, but I imagine they'll sort of level up as the episodes go on. We have Gigabyte, Inari Fire, Ran Ryu, and Nefarious Archfiend, Eater of Nefariousness. So these are the upgraded forms of the familiar monsters, and of course they can special summon themselves if you control a spellcaster monster, and they're just nice little cards for making rank 4s or for putting more bodies on the board for whatever plays you're trying to get to. These cards are actually kind of cool just in general. I've played them in a couple other decks, but obviously they are right at home in their actual Spirit Charmer strategy. Moving on, we also have the awakened versions of these familiar monsters. So these are like their super power-up forms, and you actually summon these from the deck by tributing a spellcaster monster you control and then another monster you control that has their matching attribute. So on summon, these cards have similar effects to the old spiritual water, fire, wind, and earth art cards. Those were old traps. So this one on special summon sends a random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. This one does burn damage. This one returns a card your opponent controls to the hand, and this one revives a level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard. So these cards can be summoned, of course, by tributing, the actual Gigabyte plus their monster, but also you can summon them with 2 spellcaster monsters too. As long as you can meet the requirements for these, you can summon them. That doesn't have to actually be the exact card in the artwork. You don't have to tribute Gigabyte to bring this out. Moving on to the more generic cards in this deck, we have Lord of the Heavenly Prison, Imseti, Glory of the Horus. We actually have all of these Horus monsters in here, and these might seem kind of random, but they actually do make a lot of sense. So first off, we do have 3 of the different attributes for the Charmers. I just talked about with the Awakened cards, you want to tribute monsters on the board to summon them from the deck. Well, these are very easy ways to put an Earth, Wind, or Water monster on the field. Also, the King Sarcophagus is a really great card to get rid of things in your hand that you otherwise can't really use at that moment. So I think that these really do fit in with these, even though they might seem like a strange inclusion at first. Also, they're just really good reprints. Imseti is a powerful card, and all of these have seen competitive use, so it's very cool to see them in this deck. We also have Fairy Tale Luna and Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, as well as Spellbook of the Grand Circle, of course, and then we also have, here I'm trying to find them, Spellbook of Secrets and Spellbook of Knowledge. So all of these cards are spellbooks, and of course this one does deal with Charmers, but that is a cool way that you can actually search the Spellbook of the Grand Circle. You don't have to just hope you draw it. You can use cards like Spellbook Magician of Prophecy and Spellbook of Secrets to get to it. I've already talked about Spellbook of the Grand Circle a little bit, so I won't spend too much time on its effect, but in terms of lore, this is a book that they are trying to read at the start of their adventure to learn some more spells. Specifically, this card is trying to be used. We do have the Spirit Charmers, which is how the episode opens. They're doing this pose, and this is a really strong card that adds 2 cards from your deck to your hand, but what they are going for, this spellbook is what's going to teach them the grand spiritual art Ichirin? I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, but that is how they are trying to figure this out. It doesn't work in the first episode, but I'm sure they'll figure it out eventually. So we have a reprint of that. We have Awakening of the Possessed. This is a pretty strong card that boosts all of your attack points and also prevents your Charmer and familiar possessed monsters from being destroyed by card effects. It also gives you a free draw 1 if you summon an 1850 attack spellcaster monster. I know it's a little bit specific, but obviously that fits all of the familiar possessed cards. So that is a nice free draw to have in your deck. We have Magicalized Fusion, which is sort of like a Miracle Fusion for spellcaster fusion monsters. Obviously, you can go into the new Charmer Fusion with this, but also you can go into like Quintet Magician, which is in the extra deck as well, like I mentioned earlier. Dark Ruler No More. Always a good pickup. Soul and Luna, which deals with flip effects. The reason that this is in here is that the Charmer monsters have stealing effects and you want to trigger them on the opponent's turn. So Soul and Luna is a great way to do that. That King Sarcophagus, like we mentioned earlier, really good card for obviously summoning a whole bunch of monsters by putting them into the grave, but also good for cycling worse cards out of your hand. Possessed Partnerships is sort of like a Call of the Haunted that also destroys a card as long as you have 2 different attributes on the board. This will often be your main search target for a lot of these effects. It is a possessed trap card, which is really easy to get to. We also have Unpossessed, which not only makes your monsters unable to be destroyed by battle, but also gives them an attack boost. Beyond that, if a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, even your own, so you can combo it with some things, you can special summon a spellcaster monster with 1500 defense from your deck. We have Angel Statue Azaroon. I like this card a lot. And you'll see here we also have the Silhouette Rabbit coming up in the extra deck too to set this card immediately. That's kind of a fun trap to pick up. We also have Charmers of the Grand Circle. I imagine this is sort of like the ending of the show, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. So this is a new fusion monster. It takes 2+ Charmer or Familiar Possessed monsters. So it's kind of like the Draco Tail where you can either use 2 or 3 or 4 or 6. It is 4 different effects, and on summon, you can use them as many times as you want, up to the number of different attributes used to fusion summon the monster. So as you can see here, the 4 options are give this card 800 attack points, add 1 possessed spell or trap from your deck to your hand, return 1 card on the field to the hand, or special summon 1 spellcaster monster from your grave. Notably, when you use the Spellbook of Grand Circle to summon this monster, your opponent will not be able to activate cards or effects when it comes out, and that'll be the main way that you bring this thing out, so it'll be pretty much all the time. And I also want to point out that this card's 4 effects, you don't have to use like each one of them. You can just double or triple or quadruple up on whichever one you want. The only limit is how many different attributes you use to bring out the monster. Moving on, as you would expect, we have Area the Water Charmer Gentle, Hida the Fire Charmer Ablaze, Win the Wind Charmer Verdant, and Asa the Earth Charmer Immovable. So these are cards that you're probably pretty familiar with if you've played any Yu-Gi-Oh! Over the past several years. They are very strong generic Link 2 monsters, and I've used them in all sorts of decks. But obviously, in a Charmer deck, they're pretty cool too. You have lots of different attributes that you can get to at almost any point, so they're really easy to bring out. We have Quintet Magician, like I've been mentioning. So this is a big monster that takes 5 spellcasters to summon. It has a pretty crazy on-summon effect that destroys all of your opponent's cards, and it can't be tributed or destroyed by card effects. Just a really strong fusion monster that you can summon if you have the material for it, otherwise you can go for the Charmer one. Then we have the Zombie Vampire, which is like the rank 8 that you'll summon with Horus. Very, very strong card. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this if you've ever played against the Horus monsters. We have that Silhouette Rabbit to set the Azure Rune from our deck. Selene, Queen of the Master Magicians. So this is just a good card to get you to more Link monsters, but also, check this out, it is a spellcaster monster with 1850 attack. So this actually works with a number of the support cards in this deck. Don't miss that. And then finally, we have Access Code Talker, very commonly played card alongside the Selene to close out games. Having a 5300 attack Access Code Talker that can destroy cards on the field is always going to be a great way to win a duel. So that is it for our Spirit Charmers all foil Chronicles deck opening. I think it's super fun that these decks are all foil. I think it is a nice step up from a normal structure deck, and I hope you guys pick these up in the TCG when they release in just a few weeks. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this deck, and I'll catch you guys later.